the call, Leader Yosen, Abena, Felix, Akisha. Thank you.
I can hardly hear you.
Hi, can you hear me,
You can
please?
raise your voice a bit.
Yes, please. I was saying that we just want to give room
Yeah, it's better now.
few people to join in, and then we'll just start. This should be in about 2 minutes.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again to everyone. I would like to extend a welcome to every one of you. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us. I'd like to thank you once again for joining. This gathering is actually part of our ongoing research, innovation, and commercialization project made possible through a partnership with RISA and UK Aid. Over the past few weeks, we have conducted virtual trainings focusing on the commercialization process. So we have planned a series of panel sessions, with which this is one of them, to look carefully into selected topics related to our project. And last week, we gained insights from a panel discussion on opportunities and challenges in research, innovation, and commercialization. Today, we are having a policy dialogue on research, innovation, and commercialization. And our moderator today is Abena Techiwa. She is the Assistant Programs Officer at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana. If you are ready, Abena, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chanisa. Do you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel discussion today on research, innovation, and commercialization. I see that our panelists are here, so I'll go ahead and introduce them to you, and then we'll take it from there. So firstly, we have Frederica Yosin. She is a consultant working on infrastructure and innovation under the Innovation and Digital Policy Focus Area. She's also the CEO of Innovate Labs and has 10 years of experience in international development, engineering, management consulting, and project or portfolio management. Her strengths lie not only in the development of strategic initiatives for the government and private sector, but also in the implementation of these solutions in a global context. Her experience in program management, institutional reform, management consulting, and international development spans projects in 8 countries. Her work areas have included youth and skills, renewable energy, manufacturing, and water and sanitation. Frederica, you are welcome. Our next panelist is Salifu Nashiru. Mr. Salifu is the Principal Planning Officer and Deputy Director for Science, Technology, and Innovation at the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. He has a BA in Integrated Development Studies and an MSc in Economics, and has over 13 years of experience in policy and planning, holding various roles from the district to the national level. His extensive background includes contributions to government and development partner projects, and he has collaborated with organizations like the World Bank, African Development Bank, KfW, Netherlands SNB, GIZ, and UNESCO. Currently, he focuses on shaping science, technology, and innovation policy, and fosters technology development and advancing commercialization initiatives within the ministry. You're also welcome. I'm not sure which one is your last name, so sorry about that, but Mr. Salifu, I think that's your last name, so you're welcome. And we also have Yao Edujemfi. Yao is the Director of Research and Policy for Ghana Hubs Network. Sorry, I have a cold. So, he leads research and evidence-based policy engagements for over 50 innovation, entrepreneurship, and digital technology programming and solutions development. He's an innovation researcher and ecosystem enabler, and utilizes the triple helix approach to facilitating engagement with academia, government, and the private sector towards enhancing development, innovation, alternative intellectual policy making, learning, and competence building in an African context. He is also the co-founder and director of the Center for Innovation, CSI, and which is a social enterprise that leverages community resources to co-create entrepreneurial and innovative solutions that address development challenges. Mr. Edujemfi, you're also welcome. Thank you so much for making the time. Well, thank you so much for making the time for the panel discussion today, Ms. Yosin, Mr. Sanfu, and Mr. Edu Jamefi. So you can feel free to turn on your camera, or you can decide to also turn off your camera. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to drop off your questions in the chat or in the question box, which is located at the bottom of your screen. So the first question, and I will start with Ms. Edu Jamefi. What would you say are the existing policies that present challenges and opportunities for research, innovation, and commercialization in Ghana?
I think, can you come again with the question? I'm in transit at the moment, and my background is a bit noisy. Repeat the question for me, please.
Okay. So what are the existing policies that present, what existing policies present challenges and opportunities for research, innovation, and commercialization in Ghana?
Well, thank you very much. I think in Ghana, there are a number of policies, even though the challenge is that some of them are not, sort of integrated enough to support, especially young researchers. There are policies for researchers, policy at the university, for instance, supporting researchers to be able to enhance teaching and learning, and also be able to encourage students and learners to be able to come up with solutions that are able to address some of the issues that we find in our society. There are also policies that support research commercialization. I think that Shiro would talk a lot about that if it gets to his turn with regards to policies that are being implemented at the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation, for instance, and also policies that are supporting the CSIR, for instance, some of the institutes that are under the MST, supporting, helping such researchers to be able to create a framework and be able to develop the necessary products and solutions that are driving change in food production, driving change in housing, driving change in other sectors, especially science and technology, across board. One of the things that for us in the private sector, especially for us at the Ghana Hubs Network, we are interested in is the policy that is geared towards the GERD Center, which is the Ghana Innovation Research Center, which is about to be operationalized. The idea is that a percentage of GDP will be allocated and provided funding for the GERD Center, and that makes it possible for innovators, for instance, that we have within the Ghana Hubs Network and the various innovation hubs across the country, to be able to apply for funding, apply for the necessary technical expertise and support to be able to commercialize their research. But the challenge we have at the moment is the support that comes to researchers that are outside of the institutions that have been mentioned. For instance, researchers in the private sector. Support to them, it's by way of policy, it is not as adequate as is expected. So, for instance, you have young innovators and researchers within the Ghana Hubs Network, for instance, or across the country, who undertake research and development support of the various innovative products and services that they come up with. And when they do, even at the start of developing such products and services, when they are conducting their R&D, they don't have the necessary support, that policy framework that would engender supporting funding that operation, because you need some grant support at that level. So when it happens like that, you have innovators who sort of jump that step instead of developing the necessary research that would support the innovative products and services. They are not able to do that that way. We need that regulatory framework that would help streamline the regulations that we have at the moment. That will expedite process of bringing innovative products to the market while ensuring safety and quality. So, for instance, what at the Ghana Hubs Network we're trying to do is to also bring some of the regulatory bodies sort of closer to the hubs. So, which regulatory bodies are we talking about in terms of quality and safety of innovations? We are looking at the Ghana Standards Authority that has the mandate to be able to address issues of quality and safety. You have the Food and Drugs Board. You have all these statutory bodies that are able to do that, but we need to be able to streamline the activities, help streamline the activities, and that's what we're trying to do at the Ghana Hubs Network in terms of encouraging hubs to not just to see these regulatory bodies as being on their own, but within that triple helix approach of engaging academia, engaging the private sector and government. We encourage them to be able to engage those government regulatory bodies or state regulatory bodies early enough.
Okay.
And so that when innovators that are incubating and also accelerating get to the point of needing to address quality issues, address safety issues, those institutions will be there to be able to provide the necessary support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I will pass the question on to Ms. Austin. Ms. Austin, what existing policies present challenges and opportunities for research, innovation, and commercialization in Ghana?
Oh, well, I think Yao covered many of them, but I mean, just to sort of give an overview, Ghana has many policies, and both that tie into sort of global innovation frameworks like the SDGs, ECOWAS, down to its own national policies, right? We have like the 2010 draft, 2017 is the most recent to 2020. That's the most recent policy that was brought by MESTI, which is the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology and Industry Innovation. And then you also have a plethora of other policies that regulate some of the other MDAs and agencies that work in the innovation space. So, you know, there's a policy and technology transfer. There's a policy on industrial design and cocoa research. So we do have a plethora of policies. I think the challenge is that innovation spans across multiple sectors, and right. So as a country, there are multiple levers and multiple organizations to coordinate and bring together underneath, or at least to implement our science, technology, and innovation policy. So, for instance, this policy had, 17 programs and 84 projects over 5 years, right? And when you read the policy, it's more like a thesis than it is something that that might be actionable, right? But not to say there wasn't a good effort put towards implementing it. There's a great effort put towards implementing it, but there are a number of challenges. Who takes the lead on certain areas of implementation? How is it financed? Who does the financing? Where are we getting our financing from? Ghana continues to have, less than 1% of GDP being allocated to innovation, right? So it becomes a challenge when you have, you might have a great policy, a great strategy, a great overarching plan, but if you can't get your team together to execute it or get the resources to execute it, it becomes a problem. So I think that might be the one overarching challenge. I don't think I necessarily want to point to a specific challenge within a specific policy because there's so many. But that's what I can probably say with regards to the most recent umbrella 2017 STI policy.
Thank you so much. Mr. Salifu, do you have anything to add?
Yes, certainly. Good afternoon to fellow panelists and participants. Yes, so to contribute to what the earlier speakers presented, I think I'll add on and maybe to summarize it. So we have a number of policies, and I think the number one policy for every research and innovation is the research policy, National Research Fund of countries. And so Ghana has been able to put together a National Research Fund. We also have IP policies. Almost all the IP regimes has been passed by Ghana. Talk of Patent Act, industrial designs, utility models, geographical indications, and even recently plant variety. So these are the things that actually champions research, innovation, and commercialization. You also have institutions like, so I'll speak of policy in a broader sense. So that includes some institutions and some initiatives. You have recently a development bank Ghana has been established. You have the Venture Capital Trust Fund. You have an entrepreneurship policy and even the establishment of a Ghana Entrepreneurship Agency or Ghana Enterprises Agency. And the Ghana Industrial Policy. So all these policies put together actually supports and drives technological innovation, starting from research and development down to entrepreneurship and innovation. However, there are some challenges. We need to recalibrate some of these policies to speak to each other. The policies must work in a systematic manner to drive the kind of innovation and commercialization we need as a country. And also remember, Ghana is an open economy. And when you're an open economy, one of the things you face is competition around the world. So even as you put in investment in research and development, you are not immune from the competition happening around the world. And for that reason, there are some challenges. Most countries that developed, that industrialized, at least had some policy instruments to protect maybe startups and infant industries. So when that is available, to some extent, you're able to see startups moving from just startups to scaling up and even becoming medium and large scale enterprises. So that is one of the challenges I think we need to look at. And also lack of a public procurement policy for innovation. One of the instruments most countries use for innovation has been public procurement policies. So by that, what you do is to provide some margin of preferences for startups in your country or locally established industries that are innovating. And you only reward them for their innovation efforts by at least giving them some priority when it comes to public procurement. So government happens to be the largest buyer of goods and services. So for instance, if you have a startup that is working in the area of electronics, let's say maybe laptops, a startup working on laptops, and government wants to procure, the attention could be on these startups, procure from them. Obviously, they will meet certain standards. And once that happens, at least you are compensating them for their efforts in innovating for the economy. So these policies, the policies are available. We just have to situate them in the context of innovation and also in the context of the triple helix model Yao Edugentry mentioned, made reference to. And once that is done, I think we'll be able to drive innovation properly. He also cited the Ghana Innovation and Research Commercialization Hub Center, which we are trying to transform into an agency, Ghana Innovation Agency. We're working with the NEIP and other stakeholders to put this institution together. Once that institution is available, it will become the institution that coordinates the national system of innovation. And by the national system of innovation, we are referring to those in the research and development space, those in finance space, those managing intellectual property, and also those in the entrepreneurship space. So that is the kind of coordination we want as a system. Other than that, you have disjointed efforts towards innovation, and that will not actually yield the kind of results we want as an innovative country. Thank you.
Thank you. So apart from governments putting together policies that work together, what are the other ways that governments can drive policies or can generate policies that promote research and innovation for businesses and academia? I'll start with Ms. Yosu.
Thank you, Abna. Are you saying that we need more policies?
No.
I think we have enough, but I think your point is, how to ensure that these policies are actually effective and meeting the needs, as you said. I think one way to do that is to ensure that we are getting input from everyone, right? Sometimes when policy making is done, it starts at the top, right, with a national strategy and sort of branches down from there, which is a good place to start. But oftentimes, if that top-down approach is not met with getting real feedback and real data from what is actually happening on the ground, then the policy stands to sort of lag behind the pace of innovation, right? So I think one way in which we are trying to pilot this, or you see sometimes being piloted, is that, you might see consultation workshops, right? In the past 4 years, actually, Yao has been part of this process with me as we try to initiate a startup and innovation bill, which speaks a little bit more to the needs of young startups who are, sort of looking at the tech space, need to go fast. And what we did as part of that process was to, together with the Ghana Hubs Network team, go around the entire country, speaking to young people, doing policy hackathons with them, not just understanding only their challenges, but also giving them an opportunity to tell us their proposed solutions, right? And so that way, the policymaking process becomes a dialogue. It becomes a co-created process between policymakers, entrepreneurs, academia, that triple helix, that really informs the future policy going forward. And I think that would be an effective way to ensure that our policies really capture the needs in real time, right? Secondly, like I said, the policy-making process takes a while, right? I think we are on year 4 now of working on this bill from when it first started, but also having platforms to engage all of these stakeholders, a wonderful example of that is the Ghana Digital Innovation Week that's happening right now, right? Today is the last day. You see so many ecosystem actors showing up across different sectors, just talking to each other, understanding what each other is doing. And that also, if policymakers are involved and attuned to that, also makes them understand the problem that they're trying to solve with the policy, right? A lot of the times, you know, they end up with their busy schedules where they are in their offices. I want to know how many policymakers actually come and speak to people on the ground, entrepreneurs on the ground. You might not get that. And so these kind of platforms give them that opportunity. So let me stop there, and maybe my colleagues can add to that.
Thank you so much. I'll open the floor for Mr. Salifu to jump in here. And then from there, Mr. DJ, if you can wrap it up, the answer to this question. Thank you.
Okay, so can you repeat the question again? Just for...
So the question is, how can the government drive policies that promote research and innovation for businesses and academia?
So it's just action, walking the talk. So after developing policies, you need to put them into action. That is the only way you are able to evaluate your policies and maybe have a policy shift. So we've seen the policies and we've discussed the policies we have so far. And once we have all agreed that there are some challenges or gaps, what it means is that we need to get back to the drawing board and see how we can reshape the policies to make them work for our country. Fortunately, STI policies have been universal. Every STI strategy or policy looks at four main issues: research and development, human capital, finance, especially through venture capital financing, then entrepreneurship. Now, if you look at all this litany of policies, Ghana happens to touch on all these bits, except that they are not very well coordinated in a systematic manner to deliver the kind of innovation we want. And that is reflected in things like our performance in the Global Innovation Index and some other indices. And I must also add that for every country, one of the things you use to measure its level of innovation has always been the IP system, especially the patent system. That tells you that countries are innovating. It has been the best proxy for measuring innovation, just like GDP. There could be other ways of innovating, because even our traditional methods gives us some level of innovation. But just like GDP, patent system has been the best proxy for measuring innovation. And it's an area we're not doing very well. We are actually the lead organizers of the Ghana Digital Innovation, and I have been there. So yes, some policymakers have been there, and I've seen some other ministries also visit. I think in the interaction with the startups we have, you can see the level of competence we are building. The national capacity is growing. The passion is there. And I would say what needs to be done is for some policy measures, some policy instruments put in place to support the efforts of these startups. Going around, you find a lot of interest and passion. But as a ministry, one of the things we want to do, if we finally succeed in establishing the National Innovation Agency or even the GEC, one of the things we want to do is to support in research and innovation. You see, this space is one of the spaces that requires some level of expertise and specialists. And because innovation, like we say, is cross-cutting and is sometimes loosely used, we don't get professionals to handle it. And that is why we are not innovating at the scale we expect as a ministry and as a country. So one of the things we'll be doing is to be doing things like technology foresights. Every country must have a foresight to know where it has a comparative advantage. You can compete. Today, as we speak, countries like China are spending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. South Korea, the Asian countries are spending that. You can't actually compete with them. So you need a body that will do the foresight, that will conduct the foresight to know where we have a comparative advantage. I've always said that if anybody had to invent fufu pounding machine in the world, it should have been from Ghana. If anybody had to invent cocoa pod breakers, it should have been from Ghana. And so you look at where you have the comparative advantage when you do that. We also have what we want to do in terms of innovation financing, technology guarantees, providing technology. Because one of the things startups, the challenges they have with the financial sector is with guarantees. People are not very confident in investing in startups. But in most countries, and what we want to practice here is technology guarantees, where government provides some guarantees for such startups. Of course, after evaluating their startups in terms of technology, so that even when you invest in them, then there are challenges like an insurance mechanism, government steps in. Then yesterday, if you were at the Ghana Digital Innovation Week, we had a session on financing innovation, and we proposed the fund of funds, where we are trying to put resources together and pass it through our venture capital system. One of the things we want to do is to change the operations of the venture capital system in Ghana. The venture capital system is more or less looking at scale-ups. They don't have so much room for startups. And that is a deviation from the normal practice of venture capital around the world. And so we want to start with the fund of funds and see how we can leverage the expertise and experience of the venture capital trust fund to be able to channel resources to startups in Ghana and make them more innovative, and also look at research and development that is responsive to industry needs and our economic needs. So there are quite a number of things that we are trying to put in place. But like I said, I think we need to just walk the talk. We need to accelerate. We need to fast track some of these initiatives because the world is not waiting for us. And as an innovation policy, we need to add some speed to it. And I agree that as a ministry, it's one of the things we need to do.
Okay, thank you. Just to jump in here before Mr. DJP joins, answers the question, I'd like to switch it up just a bit. So, bearing all in mind all that we have heard about how there's lack of funding, there's lack of infrastructure, the government needs to walk the talk. Mr. DJP, how do you think that entrepreneurs can overcome these barriers so that they can be innovative? That's the question. How can entrepreneurs overcome the barriers to innovation when there's issues of lack of funding?
Well, it is not about entrepreneurs working to be able to address these barriers. Innovation doesn't happen with just entrepreneurs.
Okay.
As we've been talking, the emphasis for me and my colleagues have been that entrepreneurship it's a broad framework issue, and you have different stakeholders who are involved. You have policymakers, institutes from academia, from governments. You have academic institutions that are providing the technical backstopping and expertise. You have the private sector, such as the innovation hubs in Ghana that serves as anchors and accelerate and incubate startups who are innovative and sort of supporting the development of the country, and a host of other players. So it's not just about the entrepreneurs. I'll flip it around and say, what can we do together to sort of address the barriers that are there? Of course, some of these barriers we've discussed. My colleague Nashiru has mentioned that the national capacity is improving. However, we need to do more. I mean, we do a lot of skills development, and we know that there are international organizations that have set up shop in Ghana and have employed some of these young people that we've trained in emerging technologies and high level technologies like blockchain, AI, and others who have been employed here and are making very good money and staying here in Ghana. Others have been sent abroad similarly. And so you get to think that, what if we get the needed support? I mean, of course, the support that we are getting in terms of building the capacity mostly comes from development partners. Recently, in the support that we are getting to in enhancing the capacity of innovation hubs in Ghana that serves as anchors are coming from the World Bank and through the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan. But you need government to also put in the needed funding, because the point is, if you train all these high caliber staff or young people and they are taken abroad, how does the country benefit? However, if government is setting out money, realizing that it is important within the collaboration that is and realize that it is important that we put some money, we are actionable at it, that we put reasonable money into building high level capacity and supporting to set up business process outsourcing, just like India and others did, and that helped them to break the revenue. Of course, look at, we are on the GMT, our timing system is very relevant for our the Western partners that need these solutions. Beyond that, our language is preferable other than those established business process outsourcing countries, and we have to invest the needed capital or the needed investment in, say, building capacity alone or building the needed skills. What you are trying to do is that you open up the country for a lot of revenue and for young people to be able to acquire the needed skills, get high-level paying jobs, which addresses, of course, issues around not enough jobs in the system and things like that. And beyond that, we need action around procurement that ensures that startups that come up with innovative solutions, I think my colleagues talked about it, have access to markets. If they have sustainable access to markets, then they can continuously innovate. Because sometimes when there's difficulty in accessing sustainable markets, then innovation is truncated. But when you have that issue addressed, then so we have that within the loop. Everybody plays its role in terms of the private sector. The private sector opening up and building skills and capacity, addressing issues of jobs, government providing the needed regulatory framework, providing the funding for skills development. Most especially we're coming from where I'm coming from with the hubs. You have academic institutions we are engaging, supporting R&D, research and development, enhancing the process of innovation for startups, and for startups also continuously innovating because they have access to expertise, have access to sustainable markets, and access to the necessary sustainable funding that ensures that they continuously innovate. So this is how the loop looks like. It's a very collaborative loop. It's a very integrated loop, and we cannot afford to have one of the stakeholders, slack. And a lot of action is needed in terms of trying to ensure that the collaboration continues, and then also there's action on each other's side. Thank you.
Thank you for drawing our attention to it, that we all need to work together, and it's not just entrepreneurs, but we also need the policy developers and government and everyone else in the entrepreneur space, in the innovative space. Hello.
So just maybe because you might not come back to this question, I think one of the challenges I would like to throw at entrepreneurs or innovators is the fact that it has always been like the chicken and egg situation. At every point in time, you require government support and instruments to drive the kind of innovation you want to see. However, when you have some breakthroughs, it also sends a very strong signal to government. You will realize that the innovation that started in America, even though they had a lot of support systems, a lot of the innovators started from garages and even their rooms, and they innovated, they invented, and they became multinationals. They became very big global brands. So one of the things I'm not saying government support shouldn't come, but one of the signals you can send to government as entrepreneurs or innovators is to break through in a certain field, maybe through some level of efforts. Once that happens, it sends a very strong signal, and I think some kind of responsiveness also comes from the other side. And like we said, it's a triple helix affair. You have government, academia, and industry. And once industry has the power to innovate, I think we should try to do something to attract the kind of response we need from government and academia. Thank you.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to what Ashura just said. I think that for entrepreneurs, we've done a lot. For instance, for the over 70 hubs that are serving as innovation hubs that are serving as anchors for to incubate startups and the rest. They're all set up by entrepreneurs. I mean, not a single of them are government funded until recently, where we are receiving support from the World Bank through NEP. Now, beyond that, you have a lot of other entrepreneurs from Ghana who are now global brands. Talk of Pharmaline Group, talk of M-Pharma, talk of others. There are a lot that are now global brands who are branching out into Africa and the rest. So entrepreneurs are doing a lot on their own. I think now is the time, and that's what I stress on the collaboration. Now is the time for government to step up, because government has not done enough within the loop to be able to support and match the energy of entrepreneurs. And that's a point that we need to stress on. Thank you.
I'll give the floor to Frida. She has her hand up.
Thanks. I think I love this conversation. Yeah, it's brought the hub's perspective, and Mr. Salifu has brought the government perspective. So I'm going to put on my entrepreneur hat as well, from an Innovate Labs perspective. I think absolutely you have to, if I'm an entrepreneur, right, you have to start somewhere, right? What Mr. Salifu was saying was basically you have to have some kind of a proof of concept. And Yao is saying that, yeah, it's great, you have this proof of concept, but you need support to keep it going. Otherwise, you may fail, right? A lot of entrepreneurs they get to that valley of death, right? And they can't go any further. And so in our experience, there's been multiple times where we've come to roadblocks where maybe we didn't have enough funding to do something. And you have to look out into what is available, right? So in Ghana, there are a number of hubs that might be able to get you, started on through an incubation program. For us, we start with an Innovate Ghana Design Challenge. You might get some small $500 from there, right? And then you look out at development partners, right? And even other granting organizations on the continent. Tony Elumelu gave us like 5,000, right? Then GIZ gave us a little bit of money. And so it's a difficult process. It's a tiring process looking for funding. But if you want to thrive, you have to look beyond. Like you just have to talk to people and see what is out there, right? NEIP now has some funding available for entrepreneurs. Some of it is going through hubs, but you won't find out until you start talking to people or start asking questions. Again, like Yao said, the onus shouldn't only be on the entrepreneur, but if you're an entrepreneur looking for where to start, this is it. For us at Labs, we realized that there's a big gap between the concept development stage and the commercialization stage, right? You have CSIR, you have a number of agencies supporting different disciplines, but very few, for instance, that support hardware, right? So we decided to focus in that area. And so you might find someone like us or Ghana Tech Lab or other maker spaces where you can go from that concept and actually develop your MVP. And all of these things you can't do without opening your eyes, asking questions, and looking for what is around you, looking for those that you can collaborate with. So if you're an entrepreneur, know that it's not easy, it's difficult, but there are options, right? So that's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll go to the last question, and I'll ask that we keep it short so that we can give room to the audience to ask questions. And the question is that, looking at what's happening in Ghana now, what are the ethical considerations of research and innovation? So we can start with Salifu, if he's ready to answer the question.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
so I think for me, I will still come from in this space that we are working in, just like all other properties, whatever you generate in the space of research and development or innovation always becomes your intellectual property. Now, yes, there are provisions in the country, including legislations that allows you to regularize and own your intellectual property. But one of the things I find is that borders on ethical issues is the fact that people are very quick to copy people's ideas or steal their ideas without even giving them credit for what they've done. And most of the entrepreneurs these days, even when you call them for pitching, one of the things they say is their challenge is, how do I pitch when I'm not sure my idea will be protected and things like that. So it's one of the things I think the ethical issues we need to consider. At least, even if the person doesn't have an IP or something, the credit should be there. There's also been some history with our research institutions, for instance, where a researcher conducts research that is commercial viable. And I won't mention names, but you have some entrepreneurs going in there, sometimes even poaching the researcher just to have them to themselves to enhance their entrepreneurial journey and become commercialized. So they commercialize this research output that was generated by the research institution, and nothing goes back to the research institution. And I think it's the ethical issues. I know others will look at gender issues, disability, and others, but I think for me, I will restrict myself to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Frida, do you have anything to add regarding ethical considerations and how this also affects women and people living with disabilities?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you're thinking about ethics, I think wherever you're sitting, whether you are the policymaker or you're the entrepreneur or you're the academia, the objective is that whatever innovation you're coming out with should be mindful of our social responsibilities and the rights of the people who this innovation will affect, all right? So are you asking yourself, what are the risks involved in what I'm doing, right? A lot of us have heard this debate about AI and whether AI will, take away our jobs or not. AI has been around for over 20 years. It's just getting, exciting now. About are you, and what are the risks and how do you actually mitigate them such that this innovation at the net becomes something that is for the social good, right? And can your even customers even trust you to do that if let's say you're an entrepreneur? And there are multiple examples, good and bad examples, right? So Pedigree, for instance, is an innovation in Ghana that helps us, differentiate between the fake drugs and the real drugs. And now they're taking it to rice, right? We've all seen that rice that looks like plastic, imagine. So an innovation like that is one that is looking out for the good. But on the flip side, I think some of us have also heard of examples like WorldCoin, which was a program by the same company that made ChatGPT, right? That brought us ChatGPT. And they wanted to use scans of people's irises and eyeballs for a study in exchange for something like $50 or $25. And these are people in Kenya who do not necessarily maybe understand the implication of giving that kind of biometric data of themselves out to a business, right? Who knows what will happen to that data later on, right? You can get up in Ghana and do any kind of medical study without going for approval for an ethics board, really explaining all the things you're going to do with that data, getting people's consent. And then here you have a company sort of taking advantage of people who may not really understand the implications of that, right? And so, there needs to be checks and balances in place. In Ghana, we have some policies that speak to that. We have Data Privacy Acts and so on and so forth. But then I think around emerging technology, we are still on the forefront of that. I think an AI policy was just passed and others are coming. So all of us in the stakeholders in the system really need to think about, at the end of the day, our actions helping society. And if you want to talk about women and people with disabilities and other marginalized groups, I think one of the things to think about is that they are all parts of the innovation process, right? And how do you bring their voices uniquely into this process? I can give you, 2 examples. Another organization I'm part of, the African Health Innovation Center, had to do an entrepreneurship training for students in the deaf and dumb community, right? And going through that process was like, wow, how do I explain this to people, to these young people in a way that they will understand? And in a way in which they can bring their unique perspective to the solution, right? Another example, I can tell you from working here in the automotive industry, for a long time, when some of these companies were testing cars and car safety, right? They used dummies who were made after the typical male body frame. And it took years for them to realize that the same testing criteria did not apply to women because we had different body structures and we were smaller, and in an impact test, it affected us differently. So by creating female crash test dummies, we're actually able to improve the safety rating of some of these cars, but that came years later. So I think there's so many considerations about keeping the dialogue open with all of these stakeholders will help us get the right perspectives in considering ethics.
Thank you so much. Those are really interesting examples. We have just like a minute to two, sorry. I'm going to open the floor to anyone who would like to ask a question. You can also drop your questions in the chat as well. Okay, so while we wait, I would give Yao the opportunity to give us just one sentence on the ethical considerations of research and innovation.
Right. I'll make this real quick because my colleagues have already given very insightful views and sort of covered the issue. What I will stress on is the issue of data protection. I think in research, data protection is such an ethical issue that sometimes for us in the private sector, outside of academia, when we are dealing with issues of research, we don't avail ourselves to. Fortunately, there's a data protection policy with an agency, but I think its work needs to be, more awareness needs to be brought on the work of the data protection agency, so that a lot more people who are doing research, a lot more people, especially in the private sector, and of course in academia as well, and also undertaking innovation would be mindful of data and how to use data, because research and innovations have negative and positive impacts. And I think by drawing attention to it, we'll be able to minimize the negative ethical issues that come with it. Most especially the innovations in the informal sector. So, for instance, you have innovations, and here I'll make this very quick. Innovations, for instance, in the food processing area. Sometimes there are a lot of ethical issues that are enshrined in the process, but sometimes because regulatory bodies do not avail themselves to giving support and also the technical support to such innovators, they are not able to address the ethical considerations with regards to it. So there are a lot of flouting of health and quality issues, safety issues, and health issues in that area. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel has his hand up. Emmanuel, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank
Hello,
you very much for such a wonderful presentation to all the panelists. From day one, we started this research, innovation, and commercialization to the policy. We've been centering around so many issues, even though I've missed a couple of the classes though, but I have some of the policies. What I've come to realize over the years is that we always draw policies from sector to sectors, industry, ministry. But when it comes to integration of those policies to benefit those at the grassroots, it doesn't work. Example, you go to the MDCs and all those things. Before you can submit a letter or proposal or something to them, it needs to go through the registry. And most time, the human capital over there, sorry to say, they don't have any expertise, they don't have any knowledge. Sometimes they read the thing and they don't even know what it is about. But instead of them forwarding the thing straight up so that it gets to the upper level, whom have the knowledge and the expertise to draw attention to whatever we are talking about, they delay the thing. You will be there 2 days, 1 day to the event or to the program. They will call you and tell you it's too late. And now I believe with the sustainable development and everything coming up, Ghana have the framework, the cooperation framework. We are also channeled the roots of the business operation strategy from the UN. And in that, we are trying to eliminate duplication, leverage on the bargaining power, and also increase the economies of scales. But we will go around all this, and if you are not able to put in a solid integrated policy that is going to take care of these entrepreneurs, these academians, some of the academias, those even in place, it's like they have specific area of focus or some people they are really looking at. You go there and they don't know you, they don't have any background about you, they don't want to listen to you. But entrepreneurship is bringing about newness. Newness takes time from the people, from the product, from the physical location and other things. But then the moment you talk to them, where is your product? Do you have something for the market? Something that we can already sell? Things doesn't work that way. So please, as we have big people among us from the ministry and other policy channels, please, let's see how best we can integrate all these policies
Hello, sorry about that. Since my internet just went off briefly, I'd like to ask if everyone can please turn on your computer so that we can take it.
Please, I don't know. My network went offline, so I don't know if you heard me.
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please, will it be possible for everyone to turn on their camera so that we can take a good picture? Thank you.
Please, unfortunately, my location won't favor that. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Actually, please let us know when you've taken the picture.
You're gonna cue us so that we can smile.
So in 3, 2, 1, let's smile. Okay, we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Sorry for going over the time. And I think the most important takeaway from all that the panelists said today was that we need to work together and that there's a triple helix, and that's the entrepreneurs, the government, and industry. And regarding ethics, we must remember that data protection is necessary and that in everything that we do, we must remember to be ethical and to do things that would protect other people's identities and information. And we should start wherever we are. We should start from the ground up and with our diligence and leveraging on the network and working with government and industry that would make advancements in innovation. So thank you so much for spending this 1 hour with us. And thank you to our panelists as well for making the time to educate us on the policy framework in Ghana on innovation and entrepreneurship and research and commercialization. And everyone please have a good afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. And I'll open the floor to Talisa or anyone else who would want to say something.
All right, thanks for the opportunity, Abna. Signing off now, all right? Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice team. It's a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much.